Hi, so today we will be talking about the not so new thing that recently started penetrating everywhere, that is no platforming, and its origins, because it's important to know what things used to be in the past, because it allows you to predict what the things used will be in the future based on the fact that how the things are now. And because of that, I am going to tell you about few interesting historical figures from the 19th and the 20th century, and we will start in the year of 1899, when the process with person known as Hilsner started. And I will be reading about this from the book or about the history of the Jew in the Czech lands, and I will put the name and of the author and all that shit in the description, so don't worry. So the process with Hilsner started in the year 1899, in the year that Captain Dreyfus was mercied. He was rehabilitated in the year 1906, promoted to major and decorated with the ribbon of the honor region. Hilsner was tried in Kutná Hora and convicted for participation on ritual murder and to death penalty by hanging. By the evidence that some experts presented, the court in Vienna uh, cancelled this judgment and decided that at the appeals court in Písek, the prosecution won't mention the ritual aspects of the murder. It was banned to talk about this in court, and also the printing press, the press was censored, and the Austrian government was afraid of international response to a scandal process. Emperor was also, by as word that has it, disgusted even by the anti-Jewish storms in the Czech lands. In this phase, the government action heard the accused. It disallowed the opponents of the theory of ritual murder to affect the public opinion, and that by that the jury already manipulated previous massive national and anti-Semitic crusade even to all home German and Czech press. As a result, in 1900s, the court confirmed, the appeal court confirmed the death penalty. The emperor changed it to life in jail, and Hilsner left the prison in the year 1918 when he was pardoned by the Emperor Charles I. He then left to Vienna when he lived under false names. He died in the year 1938, 2 years before Dreyfus. I would like to pause here to say that this is the perfect example of why censorship is always bad. The ones who were hurt by the censorship, by the fact that the so-called ritual aspects of the murder were not being allowed to discuss in the press, were those who were against this notion that there is something like a Jewish ritual murder. Those who were for it, they they already spread their bullshit, and they were only happy because now no one could talk about it, even at the court. This is why you need free press, because if this bullshit comes around, you need to debunk it all the time. So next chapter. Even though it seems to be more than probable that in his case it was a terrible terrible miscarriage of justice, which can be indicated by the way that the evidence process was conducted, manipulation witnesses, etc. The process was never, even though there were many calls for it, very faith in his innocence, mainly in the fact that there is a ritual, the I'm sorry, the faith in Hilsner's guilt, mainly the fact that it was a ritual murder, left stayed in people's minds, and not just there. Similar accusations appear even in the 30s in the Czech press, and it was disseminated by the Czech fascists. Right in the year 1939, Jan Rysel-Sévac, after the war, executed for collaboration with the Nazis, published a book, The Hilsneriat and Thomas Garik Masaryk. In his title, he basically targets the two people, the objects that he hates, but not only fascists. Today, the ritual murder is proven fact, writes a Catholic priest and poet Jakub Deml in his Footsteps 25 in the year 1940. The myth of the ritual murder lives even today. Historians met it in the 60s in private letters that they got after publishing their books about this subject, and we meet it today on the pages of anti-Semitic newspapers that started being published after the year 1989. Hilsner's process was a personal tragedy of the accused and other people. Their lives ruined. The affair around it started the climate of pogroms, uncertainty and distrust. It caused heavy crisis of Czech Jew assimilation process. It also helped to polarize the Czech public. It is by the work of the Czech intellectuals from the circus of the realistic party, mainly its leading person, at the time professor on Charles University, Tomáš Pěkný. Realists then, together with the Jews, became targets of hate mobs that were made from anti-Semitic newspapers, fanaticized students, radicals, nationalist workers, and young Czechs. This was a political party, just interjecting. Especially Masaryk was subjected to a hateful attacks in the newspapers. He was called the Jewish Brat. Student obstructions, and together with his wife also insultations, the resistance against Masaryk, which the Czech nationalists cannot forget his role in the uncertainty about the truth about the handwritings, even it, and that he, in the case of necessity and need, published even in the German newspapers. And there is a mark, and the mark reads that he answered for this in Czech and non-Czech newspapers publishing by saying, and that I write in lists German, yes, and I will. I cannot write into the lists Czech that years after years only lie about me, and I am just supposed to calmly watch and be made silent. If I knew Chinese, I would write into the Chinese lists so that I could defend the truth against the journalist corruptions. That was in 1899 what he said. Anyway, a lot of cities were proud that their citizens boycotted Masaryk's lectures, the hatred come to its peak by a unsuccessful assassination attempt in Pilsen in the year 1907. I would like to interject here the handwriting subject that was a big point of Czech nationalism. It was a few lists from a book that were from the 9th and 10th century that turned out to be forgery, and there was a lot of havoc about this because everyone who pointed out the obvious truth that it was forgery was considered a traitor of the nation and all that bullshit. And this is the fact that, you know, first you get lied about, then you get boycotted, then eventually you get assassinated. It seems to be a really interesting pattern in people's mind. You know, first you get lied about, so people who don't know about you immediately make bad picture of you. Then you get boycotted, so even the people who would want to see you in real life to know if you are really this terrible person don't have a chance because all your actions are cancelled, and the only thing that they can know about you is by the people who lie about you. So eventually someone, by this echoing of you are such a terrible person between three people, someone is going to logically deduce from this that you are fucking Satan and going to take arms. Luckily Masaryk survived, and it is also interesting that the basically no class or uh, ideological divide there was between the those who were against Masaryk, but the fact that they were basically against democracy. They were also fanatics. And here we go. The reasons that Masaryk made was made to enter the this affair was several. Mainly his as a convinced Christian, he refused to agree with anti-Semitism. Quote, "If I accept Jesus, I cannot be anti-Semitic. It's one or the other, either Christian or anti-Semite." End of quote. In hysterical atmosphere around the process, he felt the need to step out against the mob fanaticism. Quote, "Even if the Hilsner is a wanderer, he still stays a human, persecuted innocently. If I started this work in this affair, I did not do that because of I'm a fellow Semite, but because of felt humanity, but also because the shame of the ritual superstition befalls the entire Czech nation." End of the quote. For that, the people's superstition could outgrow into the fanatization of most of the Czech nation, he felt responsible the intelligence that is, quote, obliged to think in the interest of its nation, end of quote. He he understood anti-Semitism as a retardation and basically a step in event, quote. The ritual superstition is for our nation dangerous. It opens the gate to superstition and violence, mental and physical. Something skipped. It is called Jew, but in reality it is the modern new science and philosophy, modern free thinking, end of quote, that is attacked by this. Masaryk was aware he is witness to a heavy crisis of society. Quote, "The entire process and its anti-Semitic abuse is an assassination against the healthy human mind and and humanity, he wrote, so much unshameful, unthinkable, passionate hasteness, and in addition to that, even unhumanness, even cruelty. Appearance such as is this can be only interpreted as nervous irritation and abnormal state of our Czech and Austrian life at all. For those who watch the state of this state, or watch for those who watch this state little closer, this process is a bloody memento. End of quote. So let me read on. The this step up by the realists against the judgment by their logic innocent person, and against anti-Semitic fanatism, it riled democratic forces in the Czech lands and in Austria proper. From that point, it was one of the sites of, quote, moral rejuvenation of nation in the moment of crisis. Several years, end of quote, years later, when there was a similar process in Russia, Baylis's case, a lot of the Czech intellectuals joined the protest by the international public. The atmosphere about the scandalous processes in France and in Bohemia also helped the people with foresight, that Masaryk, no word against it was, see a little bit to the future, and by the end of the 19th century they could make about idea about what could democracy become, in which the only instincts of the majority would decide, manipulated by demagogues. And so here I would like to end the reading, and I would like to say what I think about it. I think about it what basically is capable, what basically is can be said about this entire affair was that people who were afraid of modernity and democracy and basically free thinking were they made up substantial process that was for substantial problem, that was the Jew. The Jew is always the problem, as Gatzad says, and it was made by the medieval bullshit of the ritual murder that apparently the Jews are supposed to do. And those people who believe in this ritual murder get to the public, spread this bullshit, and then the government, in trying to combat this bullshittery, thought that it would be a good idea to just totally censor the word ritual murder out, and that doesn't help anyone, because the fact that you can talk about something never helps anyone, because then only if you can talk about it in the newspapers or on the internet or in the current means of dissemination of messages, then the only thing that happened is that the side that is not the more reasonable one, the more fanatical one, that can rally more people who talk about this in one-to-one conversation will win, because they are the one who are the passionate, the compassionate one. They can if they can make people believe in their bullshit by the fact that they are compassionate about their bullshit. And if you are in the end of the 19th century, if you are a poor person that at that time lives basically the poverty, and someone tells you that this is because of the Jews, and he talks passionately about it, and has all the good sounding reasons. You won't really want to think about it, you want the solution. And as we read, some people knew that this solution of all the problems will one become the final solution. So I think that it is important to know that the idea of no platforming, of boycotting, for in this example Masaryk's lectures, and then being proud about it, it it is no it is not the picture we see here. It is the picture we see here can be understood by two ways, and I think that most of the people take the no platform for fascism wrongly, because it is the idea of censoring and kicking out the unwanted things, the unwanted points of reason. That is the fascism. We need to make no platform for fascism by not allowing censorship anywhere and everywhere. When we find it, we must point to it. And I don't want to sound like fucking SJWs, but deconstruct censorship, basically. That's the point. So thank you for handling this shit. Sorry for my mic, but I think this book is important, not just like the entire book, but especially these chapters, because the anti-Semitism is a interesting part of one of the superstitions that were, I believe, overcome in the Western world because of the free speech, and that were still not overcome in the Arab world because of the lack of such institutions. So thank you.